my name's Catherine. I hope you're doing well, and also Happy New Year. I hope that if you were partying it was a good time, and if you went to sleep early, I wish I had done too. I had too good a time. This video is going to be my final reading wrap up of 2023, and December was good. I discovered a new sci-fi series that I am obsessed with, and I also embarked on a quest to find the perfect holiday romance for the festive season. If you saw my reading vlog that I did in December, you will have seen that that quest wasn't going as well as I'd hoped it would go. I'll reveal in this video whether I was successful or not when I go through some of the rom-coms that I read. So the first book that I read in December I actually listened to as an audiobook, and that was Tommorow and Tommorow and Tommorow by Gabrielle Zevin. Me and my husband listened to this together on the drive up to Scotland, which was so lovely because our reading tastes don't often align to a point where we would both sit and read the same book as each other. We're not completely different. So this book follows Sadie and Sam, who were childhood friends who grew apart and then found each other again in early adulthood and found themselves working together in the gaming industry. And the book kind of spends time with them as children as well as adults and exploring their relationship and the highs and lows they go through within their professional and personal lives. There's so much to love about this book, and I think it's a real testament that both me and Alex got so drawn into it. I think Alex got drawn into the retro gaming references throughout, and I was more drawn into the relationship between these two broken people who bond over gaming and the ability it provides to escape into these perfect worlds. I loved all the characterization throughout the book of Sadie, Sam and additional characters. Both Sadie and Sam at points throughout the story are unlikable, and that makes them feel more human and real. What I especially loved was how the book was kind of characterized through its chapters. So for example, one chapter is titled NPC and is from the perspective of a secondary character who characterizes himself as a non-playable character. And then there's another long chapter which takes place entirely within a game, as though the game is real life. It was just really well done and really cool and really engaging for me. I will say that sometimes I think the author meandered a bit with her prose. She loves a list, and she especially loves a list that never ends. And I don't know if it would have been different physically reading the book, but listening to the audiobook, it just, you heard the narrator listing off thing after thing in this monotonous tone, and it got a bit tedious. I will say I think that this book was really hyped by other people, and it was maybe overhyped for me. I think maybe all the hype did it a disservice for my reading experience, but I did really enjoy it. It's just a stunning depiction of love and friendship and all of the hardships and heartbreaks that occur throughout a life. The next book I read is actually the only book that I have a physical copy of this month, and it's The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a sci-fi apocalyptic fantasy which follows three women from very different walks of life struggling in this world which is constantly under the threat of environmental disaster. This world is called the Stillness, and within the Stillness there are some people who are born with the gift or curse, depending on how you look at it, to be able to manipulate the earth to their bidding. These people are called Audrains, and they are oppressed and ostracized by the rest of civilization, who need them to stabilize the earth of their world, but who also view them as extremely dangerous and don't even view them as human. I loved this book so much, and I'm so excited it's the first in a trilogy that's already out, so I can just go straight into the next two books, which I got for Christmas as well, which I'm so happy about. And let me tell you, I need to go straight into the second one ASAP because this book ended on such a big cliffhanger. I loved the three perspectives of the three women, and I loved seeing their different lives within this world. I especially loved the use of the second person narrative for one of the women, which is so unusual to read. Although I'm saying that, and I read another book that was written in second person narrative this month, which I've only just thought of there. I'll talk about that in a minute though. So yeah, for one of the women it was written second person, so it was as if you were the one living in her shoes, you're the one experiencing what she's experiencing. And I just thought, what an amazing writer N.K. Jemisin is to pull that off, because that is so hard to do, and I think she managed to do it and make it so immersive rather than taking you out of the story. I was in awe of it. Speaking of her writing, it's just incredible the whole way through. The world building in this book is incredible because this world is really complex. Like, I couldn't sit here and explain to you the intricacies of this world because it was a lot to wrap your head around, but the writing is so accessible and powerful at the same time that it's not overwhelming when you're reading about it. And I think that's so hard to achieve. I think a lot of sci-fi fantasy authors, in order to get to the story they want to tell, they have to include a big info dump at the beginning of the story to set you in this world, and Jemisin achieves explaining this world to the reader without having that big chunk. She just throws you right in, and I just appreciate that so much. The themes in this book are so relevant in regards to the climate crisis we're currently going through and the oppression of groups of people within society, so I highly recommend it if you're a sci-fi fantasy reader, and even if you aren't, I think you should try it. The next book I read was The Push by Ashley Audrain. This is a thriller and it follows a woman who is struggling to connect with her newborn daughter, and as the years go by and incidents begin to occur, she is struggling to come to terms with the fact that her daughter may be causing these incidents, or whether her own strained relationship with her own mother is causing her to view her daughter in a skewed light. I really love this book. It was a really fast-paced thriller, and this is the other book I read this month, which was written in second-person narrative. So it's written by the woman to her husband, and it's kind of written in the way that she's written this manuscript for her husband, detailing the events of the past years with their daughter from her perspective. And it was really interesting. It took me a bit longer to get into this narrative than it did with fifth season, but once I was in, and it was quite an interesting choice to make, because I think one of the important aspects of the book was the woman not knowing whether what she was seeing was really what was happening. So it added to that layer of the reader wondering whether she is a reliable narrator or not. It also featured chapters throughout that weren't from the woman's perspective and focused on her relationship with her own mother as a child, and also her mother's relationship with her mother. So it gives you a really interesting look at 3 generations of women in this family and how they struggled with motherhood, and how each of their own traumas has had like this domino effect on their own child. Very, very interesting. I'd recommend this if you're looking for a really fast-paced thriller, but that's not too complex plot-wise or has too vast a cast of characters. This is a very character-centric novel, and I love that about it. It's an interesting and contained story with so many chilling moments throughout. The next book I read was A Holly Jolly Ever After by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone, and this is where I started searching for the perfect holiday romance in time to read for Christmas. This is the second book in the Christmas Notch universe and follows an ex-boy band member called Callum and a former child star called Winnie, who are starring together in a softcore Hallmark movie and who end up practicing their scenes off screen in order for Winnie to get more comfortable on screen. Something I liked about this book was that Callum, as the main male love interest, wasn't some model-esque washboard ab guy. He had a bit of a dad bod, and our main female character was really into this, and it was referred to like throughout the story as her being really attracted to him, her loving his body. And I just thought that was really refreshing, because I think that in the romance books I'm reading, I'm getting a lot of diversity in terms of the female love interest, but I find less that the male love interests vary body type wise. I also like the aspect of the book that Winnie, as a former child star who got married really young, has this kind of messed up idea and lack of knowledge about sex and about her own relationship with her body due to her parents forcing this concept of purity on her at a young age. I think child stardom is something that is really fascinating, so I liked getting to explore her background with that. And I also thought she was a good female love interest, contrast to the last book in the series with Bea, who is a porn star and is really confident in her body and her sexuality. But unfortunately, the things I liked about this book ends there. This just fell so flat for me. I was in it kind of for the first half of the book. This was one of the books I read in my reading vlog, so if you want my like fresh reactions to it, I read it in that vlog. I just wanted there to be more scenes of them actually filming the movie together, but they barely spent any time filming, even though that is like a big part of what the plot of the book is. And I think there were so many missed opportunities from the authors to use this plot device to drive forward the characters' relationship with each other and the spice. Like, you could have so much fun with this whole concept. And there's also a plot point that comes in halfway through, which just, like, there was the nail in the coffin for me as soon as they introduced the specific thing, which if you've read the book, I think you know what I'm referring to. I just did not vibe with it. I didn't vibe with it, and it became the main focus of the rest of the book. So it was the second half of the book was like kind of a quick skim for me because I just got so tired of it. Following on from that disappointment, we got on to Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. I lost my Tessa Bailey virginity. This is my first foray into her work, and this book follows Beat and Melody. That's the characters' names. Their mothers were a former rock star duo who fell out and the band split up, and it's been 30 years. And now Beat and Melody are trying to reunite their mothers for a reality TV show and for a charity concert. This was my first Tessa Bailey book and I didn't love it, but it didn't put me off trying more Tessa Bailey. So it wasn't that bad. The writing was fine, but it sometimes verged too saccharine for me. I thought Melody was funny. I quite liked her, but Beat was literally a nothing character. His only characteristic was the fact that he was in love with Melody and that he was having intimacy issues. That was it. I also just didn't really buy their relationship together. It felt to me that the only thing they had in common was that their mothers were in this band together and they had like this similar experience of growing up not being able to trust anyone outside of their circle. But it was honestly giving me like the vibes of they're gonna date for like 3 months and then realise they have nothing in common, and Melody's gonna get sick and tired of being way too overprotective and weird. And honestly, I was more invested in the really minor side relationship that was happening between the producer of the reality show and the cameraman that was following them around. I would read about them in a heartbeat. They had chemistry, they had tension, they were vibing. The next book I read was A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kinney. And this book was a trip and a half. It's a spicy nutcracker retelling and it follows Clara and Louisa, two sisters who have recently moved in with their godfather Drosselmeyer, and they end up finding themselves travelling to the Fae realm when they discover a Fae prince who has been trapped by Drosselmeyer in the body of a nutcracker in the home. The plot is basically the two sisters trying to help the prince return home to reclaim his throne from the Mouse King, but the main plot centres on the romantic relationships that develop between Louisa and the prince and Clara and the Sugar Plum Fairy. Now, I wouldn't say I hated this book. I think it was actually quite fun, but I would never recommend this book to anyone because I think if I did, they would really think I was unhinged. It's not well written and it's smut for smut's sake, quite honestly, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you want more plot from a book, then you're not going to get that here. Good things I liked about it. I liked the Fae world that the author built. I thought it was quite funny. Whether it was intentionally funny or not. I think the author wasn't taking the story too seriously, and I appreciated that. It was just meant for like a fun time. However, it did not satisfy the festive holiday itch that I've been looking to scratch. The only Christmassy element about it is that it's based off the Nutcracker and there's snow. But yeah, this book was a time, but I probably am not going to revisit this author. And then we came to Lovelight Farms by B.K. Morrison. Borison, not Morrison. And this was everything that I had been searching for and more. Lovelight Farms is a friends to lovers romance which follows Stella, who's the owner of a Christmas tree farm which is in financial decline. So she has entered and won a competition set up by this social media influencer Evelyn St. James, where there is a cash prize and the opportunity to be featured on Evelyn's social media accounts. The only problem is that in Stella's application she claimed that she ran the farm with her long-term boyfriend, but she doesn't have a boyfriend. She said it because she thought that Evelyn would be more inclined to make her the winner if there was like some romance involved. But now that she's won, she needs a boyfriend so that Evelyn isn't like, where's your fella? So with Evelyn's visit fast approaching, Stella enlists the help of her best friend Luca, who is going to pretend to be her boyfriend for the duration of the trip. For me, this book was the right balance of whimsical small town Gilmore Girls-y vibes with some really nice, well-written romantic spice in it as well. I'm typically more of an enemies to lovers gal, but this book really worked for me. There was something so nice about just jumping into Stella and Luca's like 10+ years relationship that's already been developed, and I thought the author did a really good job at kind of convincing me why these two people should be together, but also why neither of them have made the move to be together in all this time. Although it is a bit of a stretch, like 10 years and you've not broached the topic at all, even though you both clearly are into each other, seems far-fetched, but you know, I like that. This also was so Christmassy. It's literally a Christmas tree farm. If you're looking for a good Christmassy read, I can't imagine you'll be wanting to in January when this is going up. But for December this year, this is a really good one. The next book I read was The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, and this book is a dark academia thriller written by the same author as The Silent Patient, which is a book I did really enjoy. This book follows a group therapist called Mariana. Mariana becomes obsessed with the guilt of one of the professors at the university after one of her niece's friends shows up dead. She sinks further and further into the case until she'll stop at nothing to prove he's been killing these girls. I went into this book with quite high hopes and it didn't quite deliver for me. I felt like the plot was littered with a lot of red herrings that, rather than keeping me guessing, was leaving me unsatisfied with how the plot and story was unfolding. I also feel like the reveal at the end of the murder and the motive came completely out of nowhere and was just not earned at all. There is also a really weird and unnecessary inclusion of one of the characters from The Silent Patient, which when it popped up took me completely out of the story because I literally had to put the book down, grab my phone and Google search to make sure that I wasn't going crazy, and it was the same character. And then once that was confirmed to me, it sent me into this spiral of confusion trying to figure out if these two books are in the same world and they're now linked through this character, where in the timeline are they happening with each other? It was just not adding up for me. And when I was looking into it more after I'd finished the book, I was seeing a lot of holes in the inclusion of this character. It's like the inclusion of the character in this book have contradicted things that were said in The Silent Patient. I just thought it was really weird that the author decided to include this Easter egg like it's some sort of Marvel movie when these two stories would have been perfectly fine, completely separate standalones from each other. They're still standalones. You didn't need to link them. It was really weird. However, I did enjoy reading it. I was never bored. I was just ultimately unsatisfied. The next book I read was The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, another thriller and a TikTok favourite. The housemaid follows Millie, who is struggling to find a job after being released from prison. She ends up finding a job as a live-in housemaid for a couple and their child. However, as soon as she moves in, she knows something weird is up. Mother Nina is completely unhinged. She starts accusing Millie of things she hasn't done, like misplacing things, stealing things, and the house itself is quite literally a pigsty. But Millie is desperate for work, so she has no choice but to stay, basically. The story goes on to reveal more information about the relationship between the husband and wife, whilst Millie is also having interactions with the Italian gardener where he's warning her off the house, saying there's danger. This thriller was just basically completely over the top, but so highly entertaining. Nina, the mother, was so unhinged, and she honestly made the book as a character. I finished it in a day because it was such a page turner. What I will say is I've never read Gone Girl, but I have watched the film, and this book felt like a kind of knockoff version of Gone Girl, and I thought that the mystery that unfolded was overall quite predictable, but it was a really fun time. The next book I read was The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Liese. This was actually a novella. I really loved this book as well as Lovelight Farms. It was another hit for me in terms of like holiday romance. It is kind of a You've Got Mail inspired story. It follows two managers of an independent bookstore who couldn't be more opposite to each other. Gabriella is very creative and really wants to retain this independent, welcoming essence of the bookshop that provides every customer with this personal service, whereas Jonathan is all about numbers and profit and making sure that the business is kept afloat and keeping up with trends and the modern technological world, which wants click and collect and delivery services. Clearly there is tension between the two, but it's also clear that after having worked so closely together with a year, they actually know each other better than anyone else knows them, and so they have this bond. Meanwhile, Gabriella is talking to a mystery man who she met on Reddit, but who she's never met before. This book was so flipping cute. It was similar to Lovelight Farms in a kind of Christmassy vibe sense. It was giving that. The only thing that let this book down for me, I think, was the ending. Once the characters got together, I kind of lost interest in the plot, and I think that's where the book should have ended, but it's not. This was an open door romance, so they didn't have sex or anything before they got together, but once they got together, instead of the book ending, the author then put in like sex scenes and an epilogue at the end, and I was just like, I don't think that was necessary. However, I loved the romantic tension that was built up before this. I really enjoyed the inclusion of Gabriella's autism and Jonathan's diabetes. I think that the author did a good job of including them, not just for the sake of diversity, but were actually integral to the plot and the relationships between these two characters, and it was just really, really well done. And then the last book I read of 2023 was The Skeleton Key by Erin Kelly. This book follows Nell, who is the daughter of a renowned artist slash author who skyrocketed to fame as a young man after writing this part picture book, part treasure hunt, which gathered a cult following and has affected their family's life since, for better and for worse. On the 50th anniversary of the book's release, a documentary crew is at this family's house getting ready to film a big announcement of a 50th anniversary release of a new edition of the book, where the final undiscovered piece of this treasure hunt will be up for grabs again. But this big announcement is derailed by a shocking discovery on the day. This discovery sends Nell down a path of trying to uncover a lot of family secrets that have been buried for years, whilst at the same time she's trying to protect herself and her foster daughter Billy from the dangerous and obsessive followers of her father's book. So this book was not what I thought it was going to be going into it, and I think that had an impact on my experience. I thought it was going to be like this thriller mystery involving a dangerous treasure hunt that Nell's father has sent the family on, but it's not that at all. The treasure hunt, in fact, is actually a really, really small part of the book, and that was the part that had drawn me into reading it, so I was disappointed in that. This book turned out to be more of a family focused drama. The main thrust of this book is learning about all the people in this family and how they relate to each other and what their relationships are like with each other. And the author really throws you into the middle of this straight away and expects you to kind of catch up quickly with who's who and what's what and where's where. And I really appreciated that about it. I liked that it straight away got my brain into gear, and it was a good way of getting me involved in the story. The book also jumps timelines, so the main plot of the book is set following Nell trying to discover this big great mystery that's been going on for years under her nose. But each time she is about to make a big discovery, the book jumps back in time and presents what she is about to find out in real time for the reader. And I also think that that worked really, really well. I enjoyed that part about it. The thing is, I think I did really enjoy a lot about this book, but because I went into it with the wrong expectations of what it was going to be, it kind of dampened it for me. And I think it's really on the way this book was advertised to me, I think, that's let that down. What I will say is that the whole time I was reading this book, I was like, this would make such a good limited series. I would watch this show so much. The family drama of it was giving like Dr. Foster vibes, and I feel like if the BBC picked this book up to adapt it, and I think they should, it would just be amazing and I would love it. I would love that. And that's my last wrap up of 2023, and I can't wait to read more books in 2024 and continue making these videos because I'm having so much fun doing it. I'm going to be making a video about all the books in 2023 that I read sometime this month. I think it'll actually be my next video. I wanted to do like a top 10 list of books that I read in 2023, but I kind of wanted to make it a bit more interesting, so I think I'm going to randomise a bracket tournament and pit the books in battles against each other until we find out who my overall winner of 2023 is. But that's going to be a time because I'm going to randomise it, so I'm not going to know who's pitted up against who. I can't choose that. Exciting! Some things I've got planned for 2024. I want to keep making these videos once a week, but I also want to start trying to make shorts and see if that's something I could get into. I find it very intimidating, but I find making these videos quite intimidating at the start too, and I think that I've gotten the hang of it now, so I think it's time to challenge myself a bit more. And I also think I want to kind of make my Instagram account into more of a bookstagram account, because really I'm not very good at posting to Instagram about my life and stuff. I'm so bad at taking pictures and stuff like that, so I'd quite like to kind of make it a space where I'm actually talking about stuff that I'm passionate about, like films and books and what I actually am interested in, and then like life stuff sprinkled in whenever it takes my fancy. I also want to start making a few more videos focused on my writing, which I've been scared to do so far on this channel, but I finished my first draft of the book that I'm writing just before Christmas. So I think now that I've got something substantial to work with, I've maybe got the confidence more to share online what I'm working on. But we'll see. I'm gonna tentatively say that because I don't want to like put more pressure on it when I already feel enough pressure writing a whole book. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you had an amazing 2023 new year, and I hope that 2024 is going to be a really good one for you as well, and that I'll see more of you throughout the year. But yes, I hope you have a really good upcoming week. Bye!